Hey USY, my name is Zachary Weiser and I'm from EMTZA and I'm doing this week's Parsha video. Did you know that on this Shabbat we will be reading a double Parsha? This is one of the 7 potential weeks where a double Parsha can take place, and in this case we'll be reading both Tazria-Metzora. The main topic within these 2 Parshiot is purity, specifically dealing with an illness called Tzara'at. Tzara'at is often translated as leprosy, a modern-day disease which causes skin lesions. But in reality, Tzara'at is caused by sin and given directly from God, making it a supernatural disease. Tzara'at can show up on a person's body, their clothes, or even their homes. It would often appear in the form of white or pink lesions on the skin and dark and green spots on homes and clothes. Once someone is diagnosed with Tzara'at, they are deemed impure, and in order to become pure again, they must isolate themselves until the Tzara'at heals. If the clothing or piece of the house is diagnosed, then the clothes or piece of the house must be removed or destroyed. This reminds me of something that is a little too familiar today. Obviously, I am referencing the current coronavirus outbreak that is affecting each of our lives every day. But I want to take a break from hearing about that for a few minutes. For weeks I've been hearing about quarantine, social distancing, and washing hands. So instead, I want to talk about what happens after Tzara'at. When the Tzara'at has healed, the person is allowed to come back into the community and rejoin. But before, in order to become pure, a Kohen, a priest, must complete a 3-step process. The first step involves a bird, a crimson thread, and a sprig from a shrub being dipped into the blood of a different bird. A little bit of this blood is then put on the person before they go into holy water, in a mikvah. 7 days later, the person goes back into the water. The final stage, which takes place on the 8th day, is 3 sacrifices. The sacrifices include 2 lambs, a sheep, flour, and oil, and they represent guilt, sin, burnt, and meal offerings, which serve as atonement. So, how does this process of atonement relate to us today? Today we do not have supernatural diseases that make us spiritually impure. Our diseases are spread through other things like physical contact and are healed using medicines made up of various chemicals. So how does this process of atonement relate to us today? Today we do not have supernatural diseases that make us spiritually impure. Our diseases are spread through other things like physical contact and are healed using medicines made up of various chemicals. So how does blood sprinkling affect us? Every day in our lives, there are people getting sick, but there are also people who are getting healthy again and need to reintegrate themselves into society after a break from being isolated. This isolation can occur through staying at home, going to the doctor, being in a hospital, or can be a mix of these as well as many other things. And while it is true that at this time there are a lot more people getting sick with a specific thing, ultimately this kind of reintegration isn't something that will only happen during pandemics, and is something we face every day. Although overcoming a sickness doesn't ever end in sprinkling blood on someone in today's time, we are still faced with the challenge of helping someone reintegrate themselves into society, no matter the illness. Whether it is as little as something like a fever keeping one of your friends out of school for a day or 2, or a much more serious health issue which could keep someone you know from being away from society for much longer. Ultimately, it is our job to be the Kohanim, helping people reintegrate themselves back into society. Thanks for listening.